folks, this is the big one. This is the one that you've been asking us about for 3 or 4 months now. The statewide battle between David Perdue and Brian Kemp in advance of the May 24 Republican Party primary. We have had probably in excess of 1,000 questions from GGO members by phone, by email, by text, social media asking us, who is the pro-gun candidate in this race? You know, we've heard from every single national political figure about this race for months, telling us how to vote. And we've heard from President Trump. We've heard from U.S. senators, former other governors, current governors, former governors from all across the country. Your question to us very simply is, this is Georgia. And on behalf of Georgia gun owners, who do you guys believe is the most pro-gun candidate? And I'm going to tell you guys, we've worked a long time to figure out how to answer that question for you. Many members in GGO do not like Brian Kemp. Many members in GGO do not like David Perdue because, let's be honest, there is things to like and not like about both of them. So in some of our other statewide races or our state legislative races, sometimes it's easier to see who is more objectively good on guns. When one candidate surveys 100% and one candidate will not survey, that's pretty cut and dry for us and for our members. As you're going to see here, though, this case is very different. We have, again, things to like and dislike about each of these candidates. All we can do, as always, is give you guys the facts that we have, and you guys have to decide from there what to do with it. We're going to cut back, or pull the curtain back here and cut out all the noise from everybody else outside of Georgia and give you guys the hard facts on these two candidates. We're going to begin with David Perdue. Of course, Perdue has a long career in the United States Senate, and he lost his special election in January of 2021, and he is now trying to unseat Brian Kemp with the support of other national figures. When it comes to gun rights in the Senate, David Perdue was a co-sponsor of national reciprocity. This is a fantastic thing. National reciprocity is the idea that your permit, whether it's issued here in Georgia or someplace else, would cover you in all of America. It gets away from this patchwork quilt idea where you have to zigzag around blue states if you're traveling across the country, because your permit issued in your state would cover you nationwide. It's a big get for gun owners, and Perdue was a co-sponsor of that bill in the Senate, and we applaud him for that. However, a couple years ago, after that Las Vegas shooting, when the guy supposedly used bump stocks on his rifles in Las Vegas in the hotel, of course, that whole thing is wrapped in mystery and confusion. No one knows what really happened there, but supposedly he used bump stocks for his assault. And so in the weeks and months that followed, support rose to ban bump stocks. And sadly, David Perdue was publicly championing the idea of taking away our bump stocks. Now, you might not like bump stocks. You might even know what a bump stock is. But the idea that we're going to surrender any of our freedoms, any of our accessories, any of our guns, anything ever to the radical left to assuage them after a shooting only makes it harder for us to stop their attacks later on. And so when Perdue betrayed us and backed the bump stock ban, that was done through executive order. It wasn't passed as a bill in Congress. President Trump had the ATF make them illegal by fiat. When that happened and Perdue allowed that to happen and championed that, it made it that much easier for now the next president, Joe Biden now, to say, you know what, yeah, you can't have 80% lowers anymore either, or we're going to put serial numbers on your upper receivers as well. When you concede on one accessory, you might as well concede the whole damn thing. That's what Perdue did on bump stocks a couple of years ago. Very big mistake on his part. And then to flip-flop the other direction again, in 2017, he opposed fixed NICS. That was a great thing. Fixed NICS is a terrible agenda that was pushed by Dianne Feinstein from California and John Cornyn from Texas. Long story short, it gave $500 million to the states to kind of troll through all of their records going back 50 years and more and try to find anybody they could find who might be prohibited and put that person into the NICS prohibited persons database. And there have been incredibly abusive stories of gun owners who have been allowed to own and carry guns for decades, who were suddenly flagged as prohibited because of a paperwork mistake from 40 years ago, but it's impossible to disprove that now in many cases. And so fixed NICS was a horrible thing. This happened under President Trump as well. It had the support, though, of most of the radical left. And thankfully, in this case, David Perdue was opposed to this in 2017, and we're happy to acknowledge that. But then, again, flip-flop the opposite direction, 2019 rolls around, and David Perdue wasn't just in favor of, he publicly championed and co-sponsored Senate 875. Now, what S875 did, what it would have tried to do anyway, was to mandate that every time a gun owner fails a NICS check, the FBI's computer would fire off a criminal complaint to local law enforcement. Now, that might sound good. On the one hand, we want to see criminals who try to buy guns prosecuted, but in reality, it was a disaster because, as we all know as gun owners, 95% of NICS failures are false positives. Somebody else who is prohibited, maybe he has a similar or identical name. Maybe he has the same birthday you do. Maybe he has the same social or similar social that you do, rather. Maybe he has a similar address. Whatever it is, some combination of factors means that you, who are not prohibited, and somebody else who is barred from owning guns have similar information, and the computer errs on the side of caution and just bans everybody with those bits of information. Again, almost every NICS failure in the system is a false positive. Many of you have had a NICS failure or know someone who has, only to have it be resolved a couple of days later. David Perdue co-sponsored this bill, and he wasn't the only Republican, but he was one of only 5. Other co-sponsors on the Democratic side are the radical left like Chris Coons from Delaware, Tammy Duckworth from Illinois, Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, the true worst of the worst deranged radical left. This was their bill, and Perdue co-sponsored that in 2019. A terrible idea. All it's going to do is put law enforcement on the trail of law-abiding gun owners who failed a NICS check due to a false positive. It was a terribly short-sighted and stupid decision on the part of David Perdue. So as you can see, we got good thing, bad thing, good thing, bad thing, back and forth, back and forth. Now, we were really looking forward to seeing a candidate survey from Senator Perdue. We thought, this survey is going to kind of make it clear in black and white where he stands on the issues of the day and going forward. This is the past. Where is he at going forward? Sadly, when it comes to his survey, David Perdue, he just blew it. He blew it. Most of the questions he answered correctly, and we're happy to acknowledge that. But one of the goals that we have here at GGO is to eliminate deadly gun-free zones. I think we all know that gun-free zones are where mass shootings almost always happen. In these areas, you can't fight back. You can't carry a firearm. So no wonder madmen almost always choose shopping centers, churches, and schools to carry out their mass attacks. Our job here at GGO and our long-term goal when it comes to legislation is to get rid of the last remaining gun-free zones here in Georgia. And so we asked Perdue, if we put that bill on your desk, would you sign it or would you veto it? And sadly, David Perdue said he would veto that bill if we get it to his desk. A terrible answer to what is honestly a very simple question on the GGO candidate survey. So far from getting kind of a comprehensive assurance on where he stands going forward on gun rights, Perdue blew his GGO survey. It was a terrible answer on one of the most basic questions of our candidate survey. So, we're not going to be engaging all the national noise on who's good and who's bad. All I can tell you from GGO's perspective is that these are things that we're very pleased with. These two were very good. These two were very bad. And going forward, we're trying to find guys who will fight to defend our freedoms when times are tough. And when times were easy, let alone tough, David Perdue was on the wrong side of major gun policy in Washington, D.C. And with his combined with his survey, it paints a very bad picture of his commitment when it comes to our gun rights. That's David Perdue for you. Now, Brian Kemp, everyone knows the story of GGO Nation and Brian Kemp. In 2018, when he ran for office, Brian Kemp signed the GGO candidate survey. GGO, as you guys all know, spent a small fortune exposing Stacey Abrams' hatred for gun owners and your gun rights. It was GGO members who put Brian Kemp in office in 2018. And our big push was constitutional carry. And as you know, after he was sworn in, nothing happened on this in 2019. Nothing happened in 2020. Nothing happened in 2021. Well, other states all over America were passing the exact same bill, 5 last year alone. And nobody has been harder on Brian Kemp on gun policy than Georgia gun owners, because we wanted that bill passed, and we wanted it passed right away for him to keep his promise. So again, no one's been harder on Governor Kemp, but he did sign the bill earlier this year, as everyone watching this video knows. Senate Bill 319 was GGO's baby. We put that bill on his desk, and many of you joined us out there at the ceremony where Brian Kemp signed it, and he kept that campaign promise. Yeah, was it late from our perspective? Sure. Did he sign the bill? Yes, he did. In his first term? Yes, he did. Did he keep his promise to gun owners? Yes, he did. And we have to accept that. We have to acknowledge that, rather, because those are the facts that we have to deal with. Now, moving on to his candidate survey, Brian Kemp is currently not refusing to sign his candidate survey. We'd love to see where he stands on other issues that were not on his survey from 4 years ago, specifically the Second Amendment Preservation Act and other things that are a priority with Joe Biden in the White House. We want to see that. He's not doing that right now. That's a concern to us. But we have to acknowledge that every time, and the only time, that Brian has had a chance to sign or veto substantive legislation for gun owners was this session, and he did sign constitutional carry, SB 319, and he kept his promise to gun owners. So again, you might like Brian Kemp for other reasons. You might dislike Brian Kemp for different reasons. But he did sign the bill, and he did keep the promise. You might like David Perdue for other reasons. You might dislike him for other reasons. But it is also clear that Perdue's record on gun policy and gun politics is checkered at best. He did not, to our knowledge, sponsor any pro-gun bills during his time in office. And on many occasions, when we counted on him, like the bump stock ban, like S875, he was on the wrong side of those issues, and we have to acknowledge that as well. So folks, I told you at the beginning, this is going to be a tough video because we could never give you an idea of who to actually vote for as a non-for-profit, but the picture here is not perfectly clear. Some things are very clear, though. Brian Kemp did keep his promise. David Perdue did some good things, but a bunch of bad things. And folks, that is where we're going to have to leave this video. From here, you have to decide on your own in advance of the primary who you think is best for your gun rights going forward. Guys, help us out with this video. Share it on social media. Share it by email. Make sure people see our answer to your question, who is the pro-gun champion for gun owners going forward. And guys, if you're not involved in our fight, go to joinggo.com and get involved as a member in this organization today. Thank you.